Hello and welcome again to my kitchen. I promised you I will show you how to make the Shahi Paneer without onion and without garlic. So here I am. We are going to start the recipe right now. This is a pan and I've added some butter to it to get started because it's a very rich dish. It is best to cook it in butter or ghee. And I've added a little bit of oil so that it doesn't burn. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some cumin seeds. Now this dish is supposed to have a very sort of creamy but a granular milky taste to it, but because I'm doing it without any onions, I like to add the cumin seeds to just infuse the flavors and not have it to be too bland. Along with this, there are going to be some whole spices that are going to go in, and they are here. So I'm adding some bay leaf. This is Indian bay leaf. I'm going to add some cardamom pods. If you have powdered cardamom, go ahead and use that. I'm going to add a little bit of a piece of cinnamon and some cloves. Okay, so that's going to go in. I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit and just have them infuse the oil with all the flavoring. So this entire dish is going to be made with tomatoes, with cashew cream, and with heavy cream, which is like dairy cream. Okay, so that's going to be the base of the dish, and then we're going to add in the paneer. So that's pretty much the idea. So you can see that all of this is crackling and moving around. See that it's bubbling. So now I know that it's time to add ginger paste. So no garlic, but ginger is allowed, so we will use ginger. This dish is supposed to have a very subtle flavor. It's not a hit you in your face kind of a flavor. So you don't want to overdo the ginger, but you definitely want to cook it thoroughly so that it's going to not be overpowering and it won't be raw. That's the biggest thing about this dish. Okay. So I'm going to saute this for a couple of minutes. And you can absolutely do this at home. You can take out the whole spices after your dish is complete, or you can actually run it in a stick blender and blend everything in. It's really a matter of personal preference. There you go. You can see this is nicely fried up, and you'll also know from the aroma that it's ready to move on to the next step. So I'm going to go in with the tomatoes. And if you can puree raw tomatoes, that would be ideal. If you can't, then you just have to cook them down till they disintegrate. And the entire game of taste in this dish is really the play of the tomato puree and the different creams that we're going to use. So that's essentially the flavor profile that you have to go after. And if you're plant-based and you don't do any dairy at all, then you can actually double the quantity of the cashew cream and not use any dairy cream at all. Okay, now again going back to my hack for extracting maximum moisture from the tomatoes, add salt. I'm adding Himalayan pink salt. I only cook with olive oil and pink salt, so that's just the specialty of my cooking. And I'm going to turn up the heat so all the moisture can get extracted. I will also add some tomato puree and be generous with it. I'm making about let me see my list. I'm making about 4 portions, so I would add 2 ladles full of tomato puree, and if I feel like it's not tangy enough or whatever, I can always go back and add some more later, but for now this will do. And I just have to let the salt do all the work for me. Some dry fenugreek herbs, and if you ordered the spice box from queenscurrykitchen.com, you already have this in your stash. I will also add some paprika to really get the red color going. I will add some coriander powder. So if you have this basic stash of spices, you can really whip up a lot of Indian dishes. some garam masala, which you can add either during the cooking process or after. I like to do it during because then I'm sure that it's well cooked. Okay, we are going to give it a good stir. Until the time that it takes to cook this, I'm going to show you at what stage our other dishes are and what are we doing with that, right? So this is going to need a minute. I'm going to let it do that before I add anything else. So my heat is on high and I will keep an eye on it, but let me bring you over to this lentil stew dish that we had started a little while ago. So I added the lentils to the strainer, I added water and thinned it out. Now when it comes to a rolling boil, the first thing that is going to go in are these potatoes, and cut them pretty big so that they will boil down and become soft. By the time your potatoes are done, your stew has simmered enough so you know that it's ready to turn off, right? So these are some ginormous potatoes, but that's okay. The longer it simmers, the more taste the stew develops. So we're not afraid of that. We have time to make this. And I always soak them in water so that they don't oxidize and get discolored. So since potatoes are the hardest vegetable in its raw form, those are going to go into this stew first. I'm going to increase the heat back up so that it will have the time to simmer out. I may also cover the pan. I've added some cilantro just because you can never have enough cilantro. I'm going to give this a stir. I know I'm jumping back and forth, but you know, this is the real world in a real kitchen where you're working on 3, 4, 5 dishes at a time. This is the black-eyed beans, so I'm going to bring you back to that in a second. Okay, so let me just tell you quickly what are the other vegetables that are going to go in here. We will be adding some cauliflower florets for sure. We will also be adding some okra, and you can add any seasonal vegetables of your choice. If you want to add carrots, if you want to add anything. So the first step is to let it simmer out enough so that the potatoes will be halfway tender. If we put all the vegetables at the same time, then the cauliflower will disintegrate and the okra will be lost and the potatoes will still be raw. So there's a timing to this. Once the potatoes are cooked, we are going to add the other vegetables. Now coming back to this one, I am going to add just a little bit of water because it is sticking to the bottom. So just a tad bit to loosen up the bits at the bottom. And I'm going to turn up the heat. Constantly keep an eye on this. Just make sure that if you didn't use the tomato that was pureed, then just mash it with the back of your spoon so that it's gonna break down easily. Let me bring you over to the black-eyed bean dish that we had started a while ago. So I actually added that to the tempering and now it's simmering away. I covered it for a bit because I wanted the grains to open up a little bit and absorb some of the goodness of the spices and the broth. So here we go. This is going to simmer for a little bit more. I may need to add a little water, but I want to actually first thin this. I want to thicken this first and then add water so that I'll know that all the tomato bits that are moving around are all homogenized and they're not standing out like this. So I'm going to give it a few more minutes. Cover it back up. Jump back to the Shahi Paneer. Stir it. Now one important spice blend that I put in this is called Kitchen King. And if you ordered the spice box, it's one of the spices that you did get already in Queen's Curry Kitchen's spice kit or in the refills. And I'm just going to add a little bit. So it's subtle, but it's got a very North Indian flavor. It's very deep in its, it's like almost like a curry powder, but like a very North Indian curry powder, if you were. And you're going to add this, give it a stir. Don't add too much because we are going to thin this down and deepen the tastes of this with by adding the cashew cream, etc. I'm going to go ahead and cover the lentil stew And I will turn down the heat on that just a little bit so that my cover doesn't fly around. Okay, so coming back to this, you can see that the oil is gradually separating from the pan, from this tomato paste, right? Turn up the heat a little bit. The idea to really cook this out is to make sure that all your spices are cooked, nothing is raw. So once this is done, you'll actually start smelling it. So you'll smell the toasted tomato. You'll start to smell like a nice unified aroma from the combination of all the things that you already put in there. So now's the time to add this cashew paste, cashew cream, whatever you want to call it. So like I said, if you don't do dairy, you can add twice as much of this. And if you do dairy, then add this and heavy whipping cream, and you should be good to go. So I'm going to stir this in, and almost immediately you start seeing that restaurant style, the color of all the tikka masala and all the makhani dishes that we usually serve in the restaurant. It's still pretty thick, and the idea is that once you add the creams, you're not going to overcook this stuff, right? You'll gently simmer it but not overcook it. A lot of people like to go in with a hand blender and blend everything out. I don't like it too smooth. It just reminds me of baby food, and that's not what I want to think about when I think about my food. Okay, so I'll turn up the heat just a tad bit. I'm going to add a little bit of water to help it along so that the bubbles are not going to splash up and burn me. So yesterday I was making this dish at home for about 10 or 11 people, and I went in with my stick blender, but the stick blender went and got caught on the cinnamon stick, and it was hot. It was like a hot volcano that started spewing from it. So I was lucky that I didn't get burnt, but it was all over my kitchen. So you know what? Be mindful when you work with a stick blender in hot liquids. So this is simmering away. I think I'm going to add just a little bit more because I have to make about 4 portions, and most of it is just going to be the gravy of it. So I'm going to add 1 more, and then the rest of it I will be adding heavy cream. I just prefer to have cashew cream more than heavy cream. If you like the taste of one over the other, by all means, suit your palate and do what makes you happy. So I'm going to stir this in. Now this sauce also calls for sugar to balance out the acidity of the tomatoes. So you can add sugar to your liking, and you can also add a little baking soda just to neutralize the acidity of the tomatoes, right? So that's done. I'm also gonna go back and hit it with some more dry fenugreek leaves. I am only doing this with one hand, but you know that if you're using this, you have to crush it between the palms of your hand and drop it in. So this is gonna get simmered. Your sauce is pretty much done. I am gonna go back and add some sugar, but I just need both my hands for that. And then as a final finishing touch, I am gonna go in and add my heavy cream. Not a lot. So I've used heavy cream and cashew cream in the ratio of 2:1, and I'm making 4 portions. If you're making less or more, feel free to calibrate based on your taste and what you like. So you can see that without using any food coloring or whatever, you really can get the look of the makhani gravies that we use, that we make in restaurants. And there is no onion in this, there is no pre-made tomato sauce, everything is made fresh. So that's pretty much the signature style of the way I cook. All ingredients are fresh, nothing is pre-made like they make in most restaurants, but then again, we are trying to replicate. So I make it exactly how we make it at home, right? So that's your sauce. I would check for seasoning. And of course, I'm gonna add some sugar to this. I will also add some pieces of paneer. Let me see if I can show you. So there's my paneer. It's already been cubed and fried, so that's gonna go in. And that's gonna be my entire Shahi Paneer coming together. So if you're gonna make this for a party and your children are getting bored of eating the same old, you don't know how to make it exciting, do some restaurant style dishes in your home. It's totally possible. And also into this dish, as soon as you take it off the flame, put a pinch of nutmeg. So that's like the secret of making the best makhani sauce, is to add a hint of nutmeg. So nutmeg is what vanilla is to dessert, nutmeg is to dairy in the Indian scene. Cardamom, yes, but also nutmeg. So as soon as you get it off the flame, put a little bit of a nutmeg powder, and it's going to really take it over the top. Of course, garnish it with more cream. You can garnish it with cashew bits. But I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you want to see how far we have come with the lentil stew dish, I'm actually going to turn this one off. We're pretty much done here. This is what it's looking like right now. Let me just show you what the potatoes are looking like. So they're pretty big, and they're going to take a minute to boil down. But you can actually go in there and, you know, cut it with a knife and see time to time. When they're about 70% done, that's when you're going to introduce all the other vegetables. So it's not quite there yet. I'm going to cover this back up. Listen, if you're enjoying this tutorial, if you're enjoying a day with me in my kitchen, then feel free to share this on your Facebook page. I'm just cooking a regular meal, but without any onions and garlic at this time of the year. And you'll be surprised, if you're not from India, you'll be surprised to know that there are actually entire communities that don't eat onion and garlic all their life. So they still eat really good food, and they live very long. So it's not like it's not possible, right? So this is simmering away, and I'm going to remove the lid, and I will increase the heat so that all of this watery stuff can disappear and pretty much become almost like a paste. And then I'll add more water so that all these loose tomatoes, you see these floating around? I'm trying to kill this. So that's what's going to happen. Okay? And then of course I'm going to garnish this with cilantro and whatnot, and then we'll be good to go. Alright, so like always, thank you for joining me. If you want to take a class with me, you can do it on www.queenscurrykitchen.com. And if you want to send me a message and tell me something that you made and you want to share it with me, don't forget to tag me on Instagram at Queen's Curry Kitchen, or tag me on Facebook. I would love to see your creations. Thank you, Sarla. Thank you, Ritu. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Shuchi. And thank you, Tim, for joining me today in my kitchen. I'll see you real soon in the next one. Until then, be good and talk to you soon. Bye.